Hi, I'm Trevor, and welcome to Catching Up on Cinema. If you aren't familiar with the program, Catching Up on Cinema is a film analysis podcast wherein we introduce each other to films, expand our cinematic horizons, and, in essence, catch up on our cinema. So it is the month of November 2022, and is once again that very special time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf episode. And in joining me in this endeavor, I have my good buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast. How's it going,
It
Brad?
is going great. Glad to be here once again, Trevor. Thanks for having me. I guess I'll say just off the top here, I feel like I'm back, baby. I feel like Black Friday has hit. I've already indulged in some of the deals, and I just feel like my physical media spending has come back in a big way. Might have hit an all-time high, and we haven't even had the Vinegar Syndrome sale, the Severance sale. I mean, it's getting dangerous over here. So I got lots of stuff. I got lots of movies to choose from today to talk about.
Well, that's fantastic, Brad. Folks at home, if you're not aware, a Tales from the Shelf episode is essentially where myself and my good buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast, you may have noticed behind me, I have a fairly substantial media collection. That would be DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4K discs. Essentially, the theme of the show is it's just kind of our platform to talk about our collections, to talk about the movies that we have in our collections, and share some war stories in regards to how we came to possess all these films and what they mean to us. So the theme for this month is one that we've been kind of chipping away at just whenever we run out of clever ideas for things to talk about. And that is, of course, heading back to the alphabet to serve as inspiration for our picks for this month. So this month, we're going back to the alphabet, and we've already done all the A's, basket, I think, or a bucket of B's, cluster of C's, and I believe that puts us to a dollop of D's. So, um, essentially, what we're going to be doing here today is talking about some movies that begin with the letter D from our respective collections that mean something to us for one reason or another. It would only be fitting that I do my traditional hosting duty of promptly tossing my buddy Brad under the bus and asking that he be the first to introduce one of his dollop of D's. So, Brad, would you be so kind?
Well, let's just dig right into the D's, Trevor. And starting off, I like to I like to think I'm a classy guy. Let's pretend I like tea. I like wearing tuxedos. I like talking about high art. I like going to the opera. Let's just pretend all those things are true because I'm picking a very classy movie for my first D. One of my favorite movies ever. Starts with a D. It's an all-time classic. It is Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber. The Jim Carrey, Jeff Daniels classic, the Farrelly Brothers classic from 94, I want to say. And I love Dumb and Dumber. It is one of my favorite comedies. I see a lot of people say, "Oh, Dumb and Dumber. It's a funny movie." I mean, they're like, it's the humor is dumb, but it's really funny. And I have to take issue with people that think that the movie itself is dumb because I actually disagree. I think most of the movie is extremely clever. Of course, the characters themselves are dumb, but I think the humor is actually, I'm not going to go so far as to say smart, but I think there is some clever jokes, some great writing, but revolving around two characters who are dumb. The characters are dumb. The movie is not. I think the perfect example of that is one of my favorite moments in the movie, where they're in the diner and Jim Carrey looks at the waitress and he's looking at the menu and he goes, "What's the soup du jour?" And she looks at him completely stone faced and she goes, "It's the soup of the day." And he responds, he goes, "Ooh, that sounds real good. I'll have that." Like that is just a great. It's like that's a clever gag. Like that is a clever way to make a joke about somebody being dumb. Like I love that. And the movie is just endlessly quotable. One of my favorites. I can watch it anytime. I will say I don't actually like the unrated version all that much. And I think the unrated version is the only version on Blu-ray. I think. There's one gag in particular that I think is, if I'm remembering correctly, is almost not ruined, but, Trevor, you know what they say, like 95% of comedy is in the editing. So there's one moment in here that I think is ruined, and it's the moment where Jim Carrey is in the stall at the truck stop, and he sees the graffiti on the stall wall, and it says like I forget. It's like if you be here at 7:30 sharp for manly love or something like that. And he looks at his watch and he sees that it's 7:29, and then Seabass kicks open the door, and Jim Carrey's scream, his gasp, is so funny. It is amazing, but it's even better because I'm almost positive that in the theatrical, he screams and it cuts back to Jeff Daniels. He has that scream, that gasp, and then it cuts away, which makes that scream and laugh, like that moment, even funnier. Where in the unrated, it sticks in that scene for a little while, like Seabass has a line afterwards or something, and it doesn't kill it, but it's not as good. So with that caveat that this is the unrated version, I still love the film, watch it all the time, and it's one of my go-tos. So that's my classy first D pick.
That's a hell of a pick, Brad.
Yeah.
I kind of wish my regular co-host Kyle was here because he adores that movie. He's
Hmm.
watched it many times. I have two, but I think actually the Farrelly Brothers movie I saw the most, and this was just largely as a result of like the people I was in close proximity with. Was There's Something About Mary?
Hmm.
Um, Dumb and Dumber is fantastic. I do love it. But I don't know it frontwards and backwards. But the select handful of scenes that I've really latched onto early in life, oh man, they're amazing.
Hmm.
They're absolutely amazing. I mean, I mean, even small details like song choice when they're blasting Lowrider when he's driving around
Yeah.
in the car, like the dog car. For some
Yeah.
reason, that just matches really perfectly with that. And then one that Kyle and I both mutually like appreciate is when Jeff Daniels is given the gun, and when they show his reaction, like he's like holding it like sideways and upside down, like after he's unloaded all the chambers of
Hmm.
it. Just something about his body language is absolutely perfect. So many great scenes, and then the fantasy sequence, the dream sequence with Jim Carrey on the perfect day, uh, capped off by a kung fu fight and whatnot. It's
Yep.
like that, masterfully put together. It's a terrific comedy. It's actually like maybe a good example of the kind of comedies that I miss. Like I really I feel like there's a lack of those movies out there where it we're inundated with like improvised comedy, and we have been for a really long time. But I miss the Farrelly brothers. I miss the Zucker brothers. I miss brother comedy apparently, but I miss those really tightly constructed, structured comedies that also had like some heart, but also were mostly just there to make you laugh at stupid shit. Where it's like I feel like a lot of comedies these days fall into like a couple of categories. One of which is the overly improvised one, where it's just like we hire funny people and then have them do shit on the set and fix it in post.
Yep.
Just assemble the film. There's no real script; they just assemble it based on the strength of the performers in the moment or whatever. Um, and then there's the like just vast umbrella of like pseudo rom-coms where it's like it's somewhere in between like a relationship film and a comedy film, and then it gets dangerously into like schmaltzy territory, or there's like some obligation that the movie needs to get serious at some point. It's like, no, I want my Seinfeld, and I want my Seinfeld comedy where it's like there's not a serious bone in it. It's like I don't want Friends where there's actual like relationship tension and stuff. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I just want to follow a bunch of scummy New Yorkers that have zero empathy and have misadventures across town. Like that's what I'm in for. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Dumb and Dumber is fantastic. I am very much due for a rewatch on that one. And I was never even aware of there being an unrated cut, although it sounds like maybe it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like if streaming if the theatrical cut is available anywhere or whatnot. But I mean, this is the version I've watched for the last probably 10 years now, so I don't even know um when the last time I would have seen the theatrical was. Probably in the DVD era, but maybe even that was unrated. I don't know, but I vividly remember moments that are either like better in the theatrical or just like the unrated stuff is just there was a reason it was cut initially. Like it's fine, but it's not the strongest. But the film itself, it is great, and yeah, you're right. They don't make them quite like this anymore. I'm some of those like comedies nowadays where people are just riffing with each other, like, they can be okay, but I feel like, hopefully we'll someday get back to that, but the idea of, like, a comedy that is, you know, built from the ground up with its script, and then I'm sure there was some improv in this movie, I don't know how much or whatever, but what Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels brought, they didn't bring in, like, one-liners necessarily, they brought the comedy in their performance and added to what was already a great script. And yeah, it's been a while since we've had. I mean, I can't even think of the last movie I saw that was a comedy that was like, oh, that was a funny movie. Like hard recommend funny. Like there's stuff that's like, yeah, the humor was pretty good in it, but nothing that is just like at this level. I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you're more tuned into like the comedic film scene these days than I am. I generally don't watch a lot of comedies, and a lot of it I think just comes down to maybe me just not being interested in that anymore, or just maybe there aren't that many good ones these days. That seems to be the case, honestly. Is there's just a difference in tone and style that I'm just like I don't find this entertaining. I find a lot of it to just be noisy,
Mhm.
just a lot of noise. That's just like this is. I hate it when you can see someone like riffing, where it's just like it can be very very funny. Like it really can produce some amazing results. A lot of the Austin Powers movies, I know a lot of the material was improvised, and it's only through an ungodly number of repetitions that they were able to get the end products that they did. But again, that seems to like be curated, like with an eye for detail that maybe a lot of these more modern ones just don't have, or maybe it has something to do with the scheduling. I've always maintained that the international market has certainly put some stress on the viability of comedies, because any movie is going to be an emotion. It's going to be a financial investment to a degree, even a cheap film. Um, and internationally, like I would imagine, crossing language barriers is a little difficult, which would devalue um, writing as an asset,
Mhm.
in favor of slapstick, which is much more universal and will appeal to much broader audiences. But Dumb and Dumber doesn't have that problem because it covers a wide array of different comedic stylings, but it executes them all really really well.
Yep.
It's a fantastic movie that I really do want to go back and watch. And actually, I don't actually know if the girlfriend has watched it. If she hasn't, uh, got to get on that shit. That's truly relevant. Damn it, this is
Yeah.
America.
Yeah, yeah, just avoid, Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber 2, because those ones definitely do not, recapture the magic, that's for sure.
Oh my god, I forgot that there was a Dumb and Dumber 2
Yeah.
TOO. I presume it's a TOO. I knew about
I
Dumb
think
and
it's
Dumber.
TO. I think the
Of course
because
it
that's
is. Yeah.
the that's a good title, that is a good title.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, you can't. Did the cast members from Dumb and Dumber return to Dumb and Dumber 2? Um, because I
So
did watch Dumb and Dumber, and that, aside from Bob Saget, rest in peace.
yeah.
That movie fucking sucks.
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber 2, Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels did come back for. So you at least had that. Um, I think there was maybe, like, 2 or 3 moments that were kinda funny. Like, there were a couple gags in there, but overall, not great. Clearly, I'm not going to say Jeff Daniels past his prime because I still think as a dramatic actor he's still doing great work. But I would say Jimmy Carrey and the Farrelly brothers when they made that film, bit past their prime, and it showed. Um, but yeah, the original is still a classic.
Well, I mean, the one Farrelly was busy winning Best Picture, Jim Carrey was busy painting, and Jeff Daniels was busy sitting on his high horse in the newsroom.
Yeah.
Um, that show, man, like show is made by good people, but something about the writing of that show just grinds my gears.
Yeah, I never.
It's like, hang on, this pseudo intellectual newsman is quoting The Simpsons regularly. It's like, I know that happens in real life, and that probably is more true to life, but that's not why I'm watching that's not why I'm watching HBO caliber television. I don't
Mhm.
I do that in my daily life. I don't need my TV to do it at me.
Yeah, never watched that one, even though I'm a big fan of Jeff Daniels. So that says something.
Yeah, you and I have both expressed mutual appreciation for Jeff Daniels. I latched onto him from an early age, and I'll show up in most cases when I see Jeff Daniels. I really do like him, but I'm not going to watch Dumb and Dumber 3. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. Okay, well, that was Brad's first pick. So I guess the ball is to me. So I try my best to kind of play along with Brad's picks, kind of develop some symmetry. It's not going to happen. Sorry, I don't have any comedies to work with. However, I do have something from the same decade. It's
Go
also
with
a
it.
'90s film. So my first D pick this month for Tales from the Shelf is actually a trilogy, but it comes in a single slipcase, which I don't know, maybe upsetting to Brad. Will you allow this, Brad?
I'm gonna need to see. I'm gonna need to see it in action here
Okay.
before I judge.
Okay. Well, just bear in mind, folks. Brad is prone to passing judgment on picks. He is the judge. His opinion carries much weight in the court of Tales from the Shelf. So I have here a trilogy box set in a single slipcase from Universal, and this is Darkman, the trilogy. And this, I'm mostly talking about the first film, though I have seen all three of these films. Only the first one's really that good, and even that's not amazing. But this first one was directed by Sam Raimi, and this was kind of a big deal for him. This was, I want to say, one of his like early forays into Hollywood proper, like as like a hired gun. And I believe he got this gig like pretty much as like he wanted to make The Shadow a few years before they made The Shadow with Alec Baldwin. I believe Russell Mulcahy directed that, the Highlander guy.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make The Shadow, and instead they created an original character, which actually is kind of cool when you think about it. It's like, this is a comic book superhero style movie, but with an original IP, which I think is kind of neat. But this also includes the two direct-to-video sequels, which in the first film, we get Liam Neeson, the nose himself, Liam Neeson. I've always loved him, as the main character, Darkman. But in the sequels, he is portrayed by Arnold Vosloo, who, if that name doesn't ring a bell, it's Imhotep
Oh.
from the Mummy films. Yeah, so he's our hero in Darkman 2 and 3. And the two direct to video sequels aren't that great. I think the story goes, and I don't have a browser open right now, so I'm not monitoring this shit. But I think the story goes that Darkman 3, Die Darkman Die was supposed to come out first, but they switched the release order of them because I believe they were filmed parallel to each other, like they were filmed concurrently. So they flipped the release order of them. But Darkman 2, The Return of Durant, features Larry Drake, everybody's favorite Larry Drake, Dr. Giggles himself, as the villain, who mysteriously does not die after being exploded in Darkman 1. He returns. And Jeff Fahey from Psycho 3, I believe. Is it 3, Brad?
I have not. I've only seen up to Psycho 2, so I cannot say.
Okay, well, I believe Jeff Fahey's done a lot of shit,
Yeah.
but I believe he was in Psycho 3.
Okay.
He plays the villain in the third Darkman, and his whole gimmick is that he has uh, what's his face? I can't remember his name, but the Scottish fella from The World Is Not Enough. He has his disease from The World Is Not Enough, where
Mm.
he doesn't feel pain anymore, so it makes him super strong or some shit. But yeah, Darkman is a lot of fun. I forget what VHS tape we had. I think it may have been Lethal Weapon, Lethal Weapon 3 specifically. I think it was that tape that I used to watch a lot when I was young, and the trailer for Darkman was on it. And I always thought it looked like the coolest fucking movie. And the design of Darkman with the bandages, a lot of comic book fans in particular like to point out that the Jeff Loeb character from Batman comics from the 2000s of Hush, the character who Paul Dano's character in the most recent The Batman, a lot of people thought he was going to end up being.
Mm-hmm.
Hush looks a lot like Darkman, and it doesn't seem to be coincidental. It seems to be an homage. Um, but I like Darkman a lot. It's cheesy fun. It's very grossly uneven at times, but from a visual standpoint and an editing standpoint, it is Sam Raimi through and through. Like you feel him in the celluloid. Like there's so many transitions and so many effect shots and so many crash zooms that it's just like it's pure Raimi. And it's really neat to see him like very early in his Hollywood proper career, doing the same kind of shit that got him to the dance, in a studio film. And the performances are good all around. And, you get goofy Ted Raimi, you get TV's Larry Drake, you get Liam Neeson punching people at carnivals. That's one of the most amazing sequences in film
Yeah.
history. Him breaking, drink the fucking elephant, him breaking the dude's finger, and like the crazy effect shot when they zoom into his eye. I love Darkman. It's not a it's never going to be a household name. It's not a fantastic film by any means, but it's one of those movies I became aware of very, very early in life. And it didn't let me down when I finally got around to seeing it. It was good enough, and now I own it.
Yeah, I just watched the original for the first time earlier this year. Um, I think it might have been streaming on Shutter at some point. I don't know, but I really was impressed with it. I kind of had low expectations, but yeah, like you said, it feels very much like a Sam Raimi film. It was just very watchable, fun direction. The carnival sequence is probably the highlight, at least, how many months on. It's certainly the most memorable uh, aspect of the film. But I had a real good time with it. I think I even liked like the ending helicopter sequence. I had fun with, and yeah, it was solid. Not solid enough to make me want to watch the sequels, but it was a lot of fun watching it for the first time.
Yeah, I could see why you wouldn't want to bother with the sequels, because it gives you just enough, and then I mean I guess there is like some novelty factor with the potential sequel tease at the end where you get your Bruce Campbell cameo. So like if like maybe you didn't do your research and you were going into the sequels thinking like, oh, they're totally gonna swap Liam Neeson out to be Bruce Campbell, it's like no, I'm sorry, he was busy doing what the Frisco Kid or the Briscoe Kid or whatever the fuck it was, Briscoe County Jr. He had a cowboy TV show in the 90s. But um, yeah, the sequels are absolutely nothing to write home about. They're fine, but they are a noticeable step down in quality. Arnold Vosloo is a fine choice for Darkman. I mean, he seems to have a lot of experience wearing heavy makeup appliances, so that may have been partially what got him the role. Um, but yeah, they're nothing special, so you're not missing anything. Um,
The
yeah,
uh
go
the
ahead.
set you have there is that how many discs are we talking?
Oh, uh, I believe
That
it's.
is where I will potentially judge you.
Oh, yeah, I may have to consider myself judged because we have only 2 discs for 3
Oof.
films. And I
Well,
don't
I
believe the
that
transfers on the sequels were very good at all.
is that might be because I know they have a standalone release for I know they do have individual releases for Darkman 2 and 3. So, yeah, it's a little gross, but I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you because you only really care about the first one, and that one does have its own disc. So, it's kind of like you're just like, yeah, I might as well get the trilogy set because I don't care that much about 2 and 3. So, not too bad. Not too bad. If it was like the first one was on a disc with 2 or something like that, or God forbid, I don't even know if this would be possible, but all 3 on one disc, that would be
Yikes.
despicable. That would be despicable.
Yeah, that would be just cut the feed.
Yeah.
But no, in this case, this was me saving a couple bucks because I had never heard anything particularly good about the sequels, but I'd always been aware of them. They did have them at like my local grocery store, like video rental section, so I always knew about them. And when they released all of them at once, I was like, like I know for a fact why I want Darkman, but I'm also just curious enough about these other two. Plus, I was like, I forget what was going on, but I think I was watching some other Jeff Fahey stuff at the time. So I was like, sure, let's keep that train rolling. But yeah, it's a little wonky. I believe the transfers on 2 and 3 are not great. So that probably explains how they're able to cram them both onto one disc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's enough about Darkman and Darkman 2, The Return of Durant, and Darkman 3, Die Darkman Die, trademark, registered trademark. Brad, what is your next D pick?
I'll mention another somewhat classy pick to go along with Dumb and Dumber. This one actually is maybe classy because it is part of the Criterion collection, and it is Don't Look Now. Don't Look Now. And let me tell you, you should look now at this movie because this is a pretty good flick. So I would say, do look now. They should change the title from "Don't Look Now" to "Do Look Now" because you should watch it. Um, this movie I've seen it twice, and I like it a lot. I don't love it. I want it's a movie. Sometimes you watch a movie and you want to love it more than you actually do. This is one of those movies. So it's Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, who apparently they were married at the time or they were in a relationship together. But they star as a husband and wife whose daughter tragically dies. And looking for a new start, they move to somewhere in Europe. I forget where, somewhere in Europe. Let's say Venice. Yeah, they do move to Venice. It's a good call. I remember this movie more than I thought. But they moved to Venice and they end up meeting with a psychic, and basically they start having these visions. Donald Sutherland starts seeing a young girl running around in a red raincoat, which is what his daughter was wearing when she drowned. And he's thinking, am I seeing the ghost of my daughter? What's going on here? And it kind of goes from there. It's I don't know. I can't figure out why I don't love it because the ending is amazing. The ending is like awesome. But I think maybe it's just, it's kind of a bit of a mood piece. Thankfully, I don't have any children, and I don't have any children who have tragically drowned, so I can't relate, I guess, too much to what they're going through. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Maybe if I do have kids, maybe I'd like this movie even more. Maybe it'd be even more tragic. But great performances. It's directed by Nicholas Roeg. I've never. But I've only seen a handful of his films. Like he did the Roald Dahl movie, The Witches, as well. I think is the only other of his movies I've seen. But this one is good. It's well directed. Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie are great. There's an infamous sex scene between the two, and I don't know if it's ever been confirmed or if it's been denied. But since they were together at the time, people have said the rumor is that what you're watching on screen in this movie is unsimulated. So if that's your thing, if you're into watching Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie get it on in their prime, then you pretty much only have Don't Look Now to watch. So check it out.
Jesus. Ah. Um, I think you may have mentioned this one to me before, but beyond that, it's totally off my radar. But so this is a Criterion pick, you say?
Yep, it is part of the Criterion Collection. I would say it is a horror movie, but it's
Okay.
very psychological. It's not quite. It's not like it's not like The Conjuring or something, But it is an interesting film. Like just the setting, the Venice setting is really cool. Um, of course, you got the Criterion fold out giant thing. Um, but yeah, I would recommend it. I mean, I don't know if it's like totally something that'd be up your alley, but if you don't know much about it and you don't know the ending, I would say do look now before you get the ending spoiled. Do look now because I did I before I saw this movie, I did know the ending even the first time I saw it. And I wonder if I didn't know the ending, like this could have been a game changer. Let's be honest, because it is a good ending. And I wonder if
Okay.
I didn't know how it ended, like my life could have turned out completely differently. It could have changed my life, but
Damn.
fortunately, it didn't. But yeah, it's quite good. It's a good one.
Okay, well, I guess I'll need to get on it before I have it spoiled because I don't know the ending. I don't know much of anything about it. However, I do really like Donald Sutherland, like just in
Hmm.
general. Very, I guess, similar to Jeff Daniels. I just like the guy. Like I'll watch him in pretty much anything, and he pops up in
You
the damnedest of places.
you watch a lot of him in this movie, if you know what I'm saying.
Apparently, we get some thrusting in.
Yeah.
um,
Let's just say all men back then were very hairy.
It was the style at
So
the time,
it was.
Brad. Burt Reynolds was kind of the guy. He was the it
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Um, and Elliot Gould, fuck. That's funny though, because it's more of a psychological horror. So I wonder if Donald Sutherland did any other horrors in the '70s, because I mean he's had an incredible long career, and he often is tapped to play creepy fuckers, especially when he
Hmm.
got a little older.
Yeah.
Because like Invasion of the Body Snatchers is like the first one that comes to mind. Also, great ending. Um,
Oh yeah.
Fantastic ending. I saw that movie when I was pretty young. That was a dad pick. Dad was like,
Hmm.
"Hey, yeah, you're roughly of age. Like, you'll figure it out." It's like, okay, this movie's pretty intense, Dad. Um, but yeah, I guess I'll have to get on it because if I mean if it's potentially life changing, good ending, crazy ending, then obviously I need to put that at the top of my list. I can't be bothered to watch all this fucking Ultraman over here. I need to divert all my resources into watching an obscure foreign Criterion film that has a really good ending. So says my friend, the judge, Brad.
Well, I mean, let me just say that like right now it's a 4 out of 5. But if I didn't know the ending, it probably would be a 5 out of 5. Like that's how good the ending is. Um,
Holy shit.
but maybe I'm overhyping it. Maybe you'll watch it and you'll be like, yeah, you're overhyping the ending, bud. I mean, it doesn't matter if you didn't know how it was gonna end. It's about the same. But I don't know.
If
It
if I
'cause
can find if I can find like a good isolated audio from the movie Big, I need to get Tom Hanks or what's his face, Peter McAllister, the father, in the movie Big, saying, "I don't get it." I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my review of Don't Look Now, just to spite you, Brad. It's gonna be a 2-star that says, "I didn't get it."
Well, I would say if you don't want to get it spoiled, here's what you got to just make sure you do not watch the mid 2000s Bravo show, the 100 scariest movie moments, because that's where I got it spoiled. Do not watch that show from
Oh,
15 years ago. Do not. You can watch the new
okay.
version on Shudder because that was not listed, but in the Bravo version, it did make the cut. So there you go. That's where they spoiled it.
Okay, yeah, folks at home, if you're not aware, Brad on the Cinema Speak podcast, he's been doing. I mean, he had a hell of an October for horror themed films, but it's carried on into Horror Vember.
Horror November, yeah.
Um, do you have a pet name for December as well, or is it just November?
No, it's then you have Deathcember.
Deathcember.
And then it continues with Januscary,
I like that.
February,
Fuck.
and then
Fuck you.
March is when it ends. March is when it ends.
It just turns into March.
Can't really do much with March. So
March, just March. And
yeah.
frog.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Brad has been doing his horror Vember picks, and on his show, the Cinema Speak podcast, they do micro reviews, and Brad has been keeping up with those and also reporting about watching that 100 scariest moments
101 scariest movie moments of all time. Very catchy title.
Yeah, so he was making liberal references to that throughout the past couple of months. That stuff. I like countdown shows like that. I kind of miss that. Like I haven't had cable in forever, but one of my favorite like after school things was a lot of those like VH1 or E network countdown shows that were all over the place in the 2000s. I could see that one being a lot of fun.
Yeah.
In fact, I would totally watch it.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. It's a fun one. Some despicable picks in the top 10, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I look forward to hearing about it if you choose to share that on your show. But okay, well, thanks for that. That's an interesting pick. I'll have to dog ear that for viewing sooner rather than later. But I suppose the pick is to me. So this one's actually a no brainer. Like I said, I try to match Brad move for move here, just for funsies. Makes my job a little easier when it comes to the selection process. So I have here a movie that doesn't mean a whole lot to me personally. In fact, I didn't choose to add this to my collection. This was a gift from my regular co-host Kyle. But it was a very, very nice gift and a very, very good movie. But again, not one that I'm emotionally attached to. But it's also part of the Criterion collection, which is why I'm selecting it right now. So this would be Bill Duke's Deep Cover.
Whoa, nice.
Yeah, starring, does it say Lawrence or Larry? Oh, he's still Larry. I like Larry Fishburne. I do like that he actually officially like made a transition into Lawrence Fishburne, but early in his career he was Larry, and it says here, Larry Fishburne. Also has Jeff Goldblum. As I said, it's directed by Bill Duke. Which prior to watching this movie, I actually wasn't aware that he was a film director, let alone a Criterion caliber film director. I mostly just knew him from Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and Mandy. But this is a terrific undercover cop film. It has a grimy edge to it, and also the cover art here is very, very accurate to the aesthetic of the film. It's not a Nicholas Winding Refn film by any means, but there are some truly astounding shots and some very creative lighting at work. A lot of interesting colored lighting and interesting like Dutch angles and kind of eccentric edits and whatnot throughout the film that give it a very, I don't know, neo noir, almost like European vibe at times. A very handsome film with a lot of handsome people in it. But yeah, it's a nice little undercover cop thriller. It gets pretty fucking nuts towards the end, where the characters, specifically Larry Fishburne's characters' allegiances are kind of just like we've gone from white to black to now we are thoroughly in the gray, and he doesn't really know who he is anymore, and kind of the insanity of the character development follows suit with the narrative of the overall film. Like I said, I don't have any particular like affinity for this film or the filmmaker, but this was a fun watch. It was a very nice gift, and yeah, it's part of the Criterion collection. So I felt that would be a good pick to match Brad's Don't Look Now.
And that, I think, is a pretty new release, right? Within the last couple of years, because I feel like maybe I'm misremembering, but I think I remember when we did a monthly Blu-ray recap, I feel like you kind of dog-eared that one at some point. Like,
Yeah, it had to have been within the past couple of years.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to do a plug that nobody's going to hear right now. We have a lovely video store slash like media museum here in the Seattle area, Scarecrow Video. That also they have a YouTube channel. I just became aware of not that long ago. Um, Kyle and I were just like walking through there. It was one of the rare instances where he was like just in town and we were just hanging out together. And we were walking through there and he just like kind of out of the blue was like, "Hey, I'm gonna get you a movie, and you don't have any say as to what it is." And I was like, "Oh, well, fine." So we're apparently he wandered through the Criterion selections, and this was the one he grabbed because he liked all the people involved, and he puts a lot of stock in the Criterion collection and their curation of quality films, which is important to him, not so much to me, the guy with all the Ultraman box sets in the background. I don't watch a lot of good movies, Brad. This is very clearly the handiwork of someone else.
Hey, I mean, however you get to it, it doesn't matter whether it was your pick or Kyle's pick. Doesn't matter. It's just like Metallica says. If you find Metallica through Stranger Things, they're a-okay with that. They got no judgment. So if you open up your Ultraman and you got a copy of Deep Cover in there, well, that's fine. That's however you find the film is okay as long as you get there.
Wonder how they felt about that. What was it? Avril Lavigne cover of theirs at one of those award shows back in the day.
Oh.
I remember seeing a clip of that and being like, I'm not even a huge Metallica fan, but this doesn't sit right with me. Like, this just feels dirty.
Yeah, that they probably didn't like.
Yeah, it's like there is a line,
Yeah.
and there it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. No, that does sound like
Uh,
I mean, I kind of want to watch that movie. I got to be honest, Trevor. I'm kind of pissed at you right now because I literally just, I literally
the
just,
fuck!
I literally just
I
placed
invite you to
my.
hang out with me on the stream, and you start shitting on me.
No, I just because I literally just placed my Criterion Barnes and Noble 50% off order, and I know about that film, but it wasn't sold to me until just now. Like you sold it more than anything else, and I already made my purchase though, so it's too late. So I guess I got to wait till next time. So I'm pissed.
No, I'm sorry, bud. I mean,
It's all
see, this
right.
is why they gotta start paying us so we can start shilling products for people because apparently we're good at
Yeah.
it.
Well, I bought enough Criterions, so I didn't need any extras. So maybe I should be thanking you. But that one I might add to my list. Maybe in one of the next sales, I'll pick her up. So is
Yeah,
Bill Duke?
I look for.
Is Bill Duke? He's not in it at all, is he?
It's been a while since I watched it. I don't think so, though. If he's in it, it's very little.
Okay.
But I don't remember him being in there. But he's always welcome. I mean, he's
Oh
he's
yeah.
a he's a wonderful screen presence. I mean, literally every word that comes out of his mouth in Predator is quotable.
Hmm.
Same with Commando, for that matter. But Bill Duke's just awesome. I mean, for fuck's sake, I think he even shows up in might be Exit Wounds, the Steven Seagal and DMX headlined cop movie. Pretty sure he's like the chief in that movie, and he talks some shit to Steven Seagal, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
uh,
He's cool. He's the man. I love Bill Duke when he pops up in movies. So
yeah, it was neat seeing him and Mandy. It was like one of those like, oh, what's he doing here? It's like, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but it's like, wow, it's been a minute.
yeah.
but yeah, this was the movie that made me aware of the fact that he is a filmmaker, and like I said, apparently a very respected and quality one. So maybe that's on me to do some more digging into his filmography. Um, but that's enough about Deep Cover. That was a good little chat. But Brad, what is your next D pick?
Well, I'm gonna call an audible here. I'm gonna do actually two together because they're thematically, well, maybe not thematically, but they're similar in terms of content and genre. And maybe it's just because I've been on a bit of a Chucky kick with I watched through the franchise and I'm currently waiting for that season finale to drop just tomorrow. The season finale of Chucky. But I got two killer doll movies. Two killer doll movies, both of them starting with a D. So I'll just throw them both out together. Why not? The first one, killer doll movie, starts with a D. What do you think it's going to be called? Yeah, it's called Dolls. Dolls, which is a Scream Factory release, directed by Stuart Gordon, who is he the one that did Reanimator, or am I right
Yeah,
on?
and from Beyond also, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. So what a guy, love him. And I also have Dolly Dearest, which is a Vinegar Syndrome release. Pick both of these up because I'm a big killer doll fan. Just because I like seeing how they pull it off. I like how they pull off the effects. You know, whether it's through having stop motion or puppetry, or uh, having a little person dress up as a doll. You know, that kind of thing. I love all that kind of stuff. Dolls is pretty good. I believe this one is more like very very small dolls. So I think it's a lot of puppetry and stop motion. Um, One of the best things about the movie, 77-minute runtime. I mean, this thing is in and out, doesn't overstay its welcome. But the one thing I do remember is that I could have used more dolls. I could have, for a movie called Dolls, I could have used more dolls. That's the one thing I remember. Like sitting here, like, yeah, all right. Whenever the dolls show up, this is great, but everything in between is kind of garbage. Uh, it's a bit of a like kind of like, I feel like it's a, if I remember, it's like a group of people that get stuck in a house with like a bunch of dolls somehow. I think there's like a storm, and the only house is the doll with this old lady lives there, and she's got all these dolls. I don't know, something like that. I'm probably way off, but that's kind of the setup. Dolly Dearest. It is notable because it does have Denise Crosby in here, who is in Pet Cemetery. Love her in that. Well, maybe not love her, but I love Pet Cemetery. Don't love Dolly Dearest. This was bought in my early Vinegar Syndrome days, before I kind of knew what it was like. I think it was one of my first purchases from them. Wasn't the best purchase. It might be the worst Vinegar Syndrome title I own. It's not good at all. This one, I think it's something with I don't even remember how the doll. They go to Mexico, and the family, the dad starts work. He takes over a doll factory, and I believe the doll factory is cursed, and that leads to the doll. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But also featuring Rip Torn. Rip Torn is in here, so I think that's what sold me. I'm like, killer dolls, Denise Crosby, Rip Torn. This has got to be great, and it's not. And also not many bonus features for Vinegar Syndrome. Only have interview with Denise Crosby and actor Ed Gale. And that's about it. So pretty disappointing release, I have to say. Not my favorite Vinegar Syndrome release. Dolls is definitely the better film. But even that is not all that great. But I guess the last thing, it is notable that maybe I don't want to say this on the record, but Scream Factory accidentally, I remember they did a thing where they accidentally, for some reason, shipped out with one of their sales. They like sent out 2 copies of like movies to people, and I remember I was not the only one. Like, it was on like blu-ray.com in the forums. Like, people were like, I got 2 copies of this, I got 2 copies of this, what's going on? And I got 2 copies of Dolls. So this is the copy of Dolls that I opened and watched. And you got the reversible artwork in there. You got that. Yeah, there we go. But one of them I kept in the shrink wrap, and Scream Factory did reach out after they sent an email, and they said, we accidentally shipped you 2 of the same movie. Would you mind shipping one of them back? And I was like, oh, that was nice of them to ask, but no, I didn't do it. Of course not. I mean, what are they going to do? so, I mean, it's not my fault they sent me to. I'm not going to go to the post office, and I'm not going to go through all that. No. So, this is notable because this is out of print now, and I have
Oh,
an unopened sealed copy that could fetch me quite a bit of do re mi. And I just have not gotten around to selling it. But the only hesitation is I worry that they're going to announce a 4K and then my value will plummet. So I need to make sure I get that out of here before they do that. But I don't know if there's that much of a demand for Dolls 4K. But now that I'm putting it out there into the world, I'm actually sweating a little bit that this could get announced any second because this is an old release, so it's possible.
well, just start creating some phony accounts and like maybe some bots or something, and start spamming like negative reviews of dolls. Just be like,
There you go.
talk about the film itself, not the quality of the transfer, because that would actually prompt
Yeah.
them to address it, by
Hmm.
creating a new release or something. Just be, oh, there's no reason to ever reprint dolls. Like nobody ever sees
Yeah.
to see dolls. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Ah,
Got to drive
wow.
that demand down.
Yeah, yeah, for real, man. That's a cool story, bro. um, yeah, I'm somewhat aware of both of those films. I don't know a whole lot about them. Was it Dolls? I became aware of through one of the In Search of Darkness documentaries. Those
Okay.
4-hour '80s horror documentaries. Speaking of which, I think the third one's shipping in January. Looking forward to that. Um, yeah, I think it was featured on maybe the second one. And it's just like a couple minute sequence about it. And the one thing that jumped out at me about it was I think there's stop motion in there. And it looked pretty good quality for what I assume is a very low budget. Is that a Charles Band film? I'm just curious. From a
Um,
producing standpoint,
let's see.
because he's known for having a thing about little critters, like
Yeah.
that's like his whole brand is little things trying to hurt people.
Yep. Executive producer Charles Band and produced by Brian Usna.
That makes
So
sense. You
couple
and I've
notable
had
names
this
there.
discussion before, where I get my wires crossed when it comes to Brian Usna and Stuart Gordon. They work on each other's stuff a lot, and I misattribute things to either or on
Hmm.
occasion. And I do know that Charles Band produced Reanimator at the very least, so he and Stuart Gordon are probably buddies or were buddies. Um, yeah, all the only thing I know about Dolls is that, I mean, Stuart Gordon's a pretty quality director. He does a lot with a little, and I do remember there being some pretty high quality stop motion in there. Dolly Dearest, I only know of that because there's a YouTube account called his name is Brandon Tenold, I think, and he reviews. He like came to fame reviewing Godzilla movies and the like, but in more recent days, he basically reviews pretty much all the Vinegar Syndrome stuff.
Hmm.
He also has a Patreon who people vote to select which movies he reviews. But like, what's the Lucio or is it Lucio Fulci or Dario Argento who you just watched like a fantasy film from on the Cinema Speak podcast?
That would be Fulci, I'm
Fulci.
guessing, for Conquest.
There you go. Yeah, he reviewed
Yeah.
Conquest like a
Hmm.
month ago,
Okay.
and Dolly Dearest was a while ago, and it looked pretty fucking bad.
Yeah. It's
I
not
can
good.
I can see why that would be like an early acquisition that you're just like, this looks dumb, I'll pick this up, and then it's like, oh, Vinegar Syndrome isn't. They weren't what they are now,
Yeah.
essentially, like in terms of the caliber of film that they're acquiring these days.
Yeah. Bit of a mistake on my part. But if eventually the goal, I mean, of course, the goal is with all movie collectors, I'm sure, to own every movie ever made. So eventually you're gonna have to buy it eventually. So might as well just get it now and get it over with. So there you go.
That might be a philosophical difference between the two of us, Brad. Is that no, really? Because I mean, like, part of the reason I like to do this show with you, Brad, is that like we both have movie collections, and the reason why these conversations I find are so easy to have is just because like there's usually a reason why people have the things that they have. Like at a glance, like you may be able to like suss out like what the meaning is behind the acquisition or whatever. But like if you actually like poke people about things they choose to have around them, if they don't have an answer, then you could be heading into hoarding territory, which I do have people in my orbit that is the case, and it's their cross to bear. In my case, though, it's like this is curated like greatly. In fact, like I cull like outliers from my shelf very frequently. Like I
Yeah.
just like pour over it, and I'm just like, you know what, this doesn't belong here. Like this just doesn't feel like it has any reason to be here. And sometimes like I don't know, like a friend or like my dad or something will just like give me some movies. Like they'll just like find them at a thrift store. They'll be like, you have movies, you'll like this. And in almost every case, I'd either never watch it or I get rid of it because I'm just like I didn't choose to bring that into my shelf, and
You
it just
throw it
doesn't
back
have.
at their face.
I mean, I would do that, but it is my fucking dad. That would be that would be a
What are you
little rude.
thinking?
Pretty much. He's like, this is some valuable shit. This DVD I found in a value village somewhere. It's like, no, it's really not. But thanks for thinking about me. But no, like my shelf, I have no intention of owning every movie ever, or even like completing a lot of catalogs or anything. Like I don't have every Ultraman that Mill Creek has put out because frankly there are a lot of Ultramen that kind of fucking bite. Like they're just not that good, so I don't need them.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty much joking when I said every movie ever, but I do have a little bit of a, like, I know it would never happen, but a desire to like to own every Vinegar Syndrome title. Like that is, I know it would never happen, but like that is something where it's like, I would like that. I would like that.
Yeah, no, I do have some like labels or other types of collections that there is like a desire to be completionist about it, but it's like it's very specific, and to have like the whole Vinegar Syndrome catalog would be, one, extremely expensive, but two, also pretty fucking cool. And I do know, I think it's Brian from the Movies for Life podcast. We talked to them exactly once. That was really nice. I hope we can do it again.
Yeah,
I believe he's in the process of like gobbling up all the Fun City Editions releases, one of the partner labels, I think, from
that's
Vinegar
right.
Syndrome.
Yeah. Hmm.
And apparently, he's discovered a lot of really cool movies just by keeping that going, like keeping that completionist streak going. So adventures in collecting. That's the whole reason we do the fucking show.
Yeah. I mean, he's, watching classy movies from Fun City Editions with his completionist thing. And my completionist thing is the Vestron video collection series. So I'm watching Chopping Mall and Blood Diner and uh,
The
Parent,
Wraith,
The Wraith,
Waxworks 1 and 2,
Maximum Overdrive, it's just
Extreme Prejudice,
classics. Dream a Little
the
Dream.
Iron Circle.
Yeah. Now, if I'd even watched half of those that I just listed, most of them I haven't watched, but
I
anyway,
mean,
we don't need to get into
yes, such is the
that.
life of a collector. I mean, we did the backlog boogie at least once, maybe twice here on Tales from the
I think twice.
Shelf.
Yeah.
I think we've done it twice. We may be due for a third because I only problem with my backlog is it's mostly the same. It hasn't really changed in probably 3 years. So maybe I'll have to wait till I plow through things a little bit more before that'll be interesting.
I could just open my Black Friday bag from Best Buy and we'd have a whole episode.
Well, you can also make your own video out of that, though, like an
That's true.
unboxing or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe think on that. Okay, so is it my pick? I forget. Yeah, it's my pick. Get out of here, Brad. You're banished to the lower dimension. I just wanted to try that out. Okay, so you did your 1-2 punch of two doll movies. So I have two options here, at least that makes sense to me. That would be another trilogy slipcase. Sorry, Brad. I hope that doesn't make you throw up in your mouth at all.
Oh God.
or a or a 2-pack, like also a pairing of two films that are actual direct sequels to each other. Okay, we're doing the slipcover. Why not? This one is from Mill Creek Entertainment,
Oh.
the aka the best label in Blu-ray distribution. Um, so this is once again a triple set in a single slipcase, and this is uh, an outmoded release because Arrow has since put out their own version of this, I believe, and I presume it's of a much higher quality than this. I have to assume. Uh, I kid Mill Creek Entertainment. They're responsible for all that Ultraman, so I can't completely shit on them, just a little bit. So I have here the Daimajin box set,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
this includes Daimajin, Return of Daimajin, and Daimajin Strikes Again. Now, if you're not familiar with this, essentially, what Daimajin is it's kind of similar to like a Japanese version of the ancient Hebrew or Jewish tale of the golem. Very very similar. It takes place in feudal Japan though, so like in the Warring States period. Um, and there are three different films that are all very, very similar. They all have wonderful effects work from the 1960s era of Japanese tokusatsu cinema. So lots of men in rubber monster costumes, lots of miniature work. However, one of the cooler aspects of the miniature work in this film is the scale. So this figure, the Daimajin character, is like 25 feet tall, maybe 30. So like King Kong sized, maybe even a little bit smaller, honestly. So the scale of the miniatures have to match that. And as a result, the detail has to be amplified because when you make a quote larger like miniature that's of a different scale, you can get away with having less minute detail in it. So like the surfacing details and like the tiling and stuff for like say a Godzilla movie from the 90s or something doesn't have to be as intricate as something like this that's of a smaller scale. So a lot of the like miniature work in this is really really cool to look at. It's also neat to see the way that they film the way the creature or the monster interacts with human characters. Like they find a lot of workarounds for like whether it be like compositing or using literal dolls and stuff in place of human actors. Really cool stuff. Also, the Daimajin character has a I don't know, it's a intrinsically Japanese vibe to it, where it's like it is the story of the golem, where it goes rampant and it just kind of cuts loose and becomes uncontrollable at some point. But there's a meanness to the way this thing behaves, and the way it just unleashes wrath on people. That's somewhat foreign to this particular subgenre. You don't often see monsters in these movies be so direct and wrathful in their actions. But yeah, it's three different movies. I don't remember the transfers being bad, although I have to assume the Arrow versions are of a higher caliber. But yeah, they're all three different movies under 80 minutes each,
Ooh.
so very digestible watches. But yeah, this was a fun one. This was a fun opportunity for me because I had read extensively about these films from Dai Studios, which I believe went bankrupt in the 70s, but they got better, as a lot of Japanese companies do. They were responsible for the Gamera films, but they also made these in the 60s or the 70s, I believe. Yeah, 60s. Um, and this was my opportunity to check these out like properly because I had read about them quite a lot before this Blu-ray was released in our region. Um, and by the way, a fun little trivia factoid: Gamera is apparently coming back. Gamera is back in Pog form. No, he's they're making a animated version of the character for Netflix, which that doesn't sit well with me. Like that's not it's not what I want. It's like no, I don't want an animated Gamera. I
Yeah.
want guy in rubber suit, man. Like give a where is Babu? Show me Babu. But I mean any Gamera is nice, but unfortunately it's going to be animated. I don't know if the Godzilla anime was like a rousing success at Netflix or something, and that's what triggered it. Either that or just anime is the style of the day. But we're getting Gamera, so
I mean,
cool.
it could be, you could look at it two ways. It could be a good thing because it could potentially drum up interest, which could lead to a live action film, or it could be a bad thing because it could be like, well, there they got their Gamera fix with that, and now we're not going to, we're not going to do a live action film. So it could be good or bad. I guess it just depends on if you're an optimist or a pessimist.
Uh, Largely a pessimist when it comes to stuff like this, where it's just like there is a problem that's started to happen these days with a lot of like long spanning franchises. Like one, the kids love their multiverses. Multiverses are here to stay, and everybody's peanut butter is getting in everybody's chocolate. That's just the style right now. Japanese IP owners, in particular, are going nuts with this shit. We're just like every character from every franchise we've got is minged with every other character out there from every other company. So it's just like it's fucking Thunderdome. There are no rules, and it's very very frustrating. Just because it's like more isn't always better. Like sometimes you just need to cut it. Just like sometimes you just need to respect what you have and value what you have rather than constantly ask for more, because inevitably, like, no matter how good something is, if you keep making more of it, eventually you're gonna stumble. Eventually you're gonna fuck up, and potentially you could fuck up in a way that damages the quality of the things that came before. And then we're entering into uncomfortable territory where it's like I'm finding it harder to value the things that I traditionally value.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's what's tough, man. I mean, that's the era that we're in, though. I mean, you gotta you gotta just roll with the punches, I guess, and deal with it.
I
Um,
guess it's an icky feeling
yeah,
like kind of, I don't know, beholden to all these producers of content and whatnot, where it's like at some point I think I myself anyway, like I've gotten pretty good at just like recognizing when something isn't for me anymore, where it's just like I don't need this anymore. It's like they're still making it, but it's like Ninja Turtles, where it's like Ninja Turtles never stopped. Like Ninja
hmm,
Turtles, it just kept rolling. I just stopped caring, and then
yeah,
every once in a while, I become aware that it's still around. I'm like, that shit's still around. Oh, I still don't need that. It's just like,
yeah. Well, so Daimajin, is it only the three movies though? Like, did they ever cash in on it after the fact, or is it just the three movies and that's it?
they may have like made some form of follow up in like the 2000s or fairly recently, but for the most part, I think it's just three movies. Like they didn't turn it into like a Godzilla or a Gamera where it was like every year on the year we're gonna try to make something new. It was
Yeah,
basically just the three movies, and I think a lot of that came down to the studio, because if memory serves, Daiei actually like did go bankrupt at one point, because the Gamera movies, like, I think they got into the early 70s, but they were starting to get really hairy. Like it was starting to look raggedy. Like we're getting into clip show territory, very similar to the Godzilla franchise. Like I think the Japanese economy in the early 70s was not doing well. Um, I seem to remember reading that there was like a bubble economy situation going on over there, and Toho is an institution. Like they're bulletproof at this point, as far as I know. The fucking Japanese government would most certainly bail them out. They are a cultural institution. Daiei, like we don't give two shits about them. So I'm pretty sure like they tanked in the early 70s, and as a result, like if they still held the rights to Daimajin, I don't think they were shopping them around at the time. So may not have been by choice, but in some ways it's probably for the best, especially considering how repetitive these movies are, because it is very they are different, but they are very very similar to each other.
hmm. Yeah, I remember. I think when the Arrow set came out, you had mentioned it to me, or we talked about it, and I was intrigued. I did not know there was a Mill Creek version that you owned. Maybe you mentioned that and I forgot, but
Hmm.
anyway.
No, it's not on my coffee table. It's not. It's not like the first thing you see when you walk into my house, or the first thing that I advertise to people when I invite
Well,
them to my home. But yeah, it was the right price, and also, for me personally, it was a hell of a get because I was well aware of these movies. I've referenced it before, but there was a website I used to go to a lot in my middle school, high school days called stomptokyo.org, I think. And they specialized in Daikaiju cinema and uh, just like schlock cinema from like the 60s and 70s. They also reviewed the Sonny Chiba Street Fighter movies on there. And I remember they had like 5-star reviews for all three of the Daimajin films. And
wow.
then badmovies.org, I think, maybe also covered them as well. So, like, as far as tokusatsu, like Daikaiju films from that era, they're very well respected. So I was very excited to have an opportunity to watch them, and they didn't let me down. They're very good.
Nice. Yeah, I would like to watch them, or at least watch the first one at some point. Just for the effects. I think I would
Yeah,
I would like a lot.
yeah. The period detail is fun too.
Yeah.
Like it is a period setting with fun costuming and the sets and the special effects are very very cool. I forget. Have you seen the '90s Gamera films?
No, I have not.
Strong recommend.
Yeah.
They are, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, probably some of the best of the genre.
Mm.
Just the attention to detail and the way they're structured is it's not unique by the standards of today. Like it's been done in many other places, but they make liberal use of like not ambient, but just like news reports that are just native to the environment. So like we have our main cast of characters, and the way the cast is structured is it's like a cast of thousands. So we'll just have like a cutaway to somebody working at a power station, or we'll have a cutaway to a naval officer, and he's only in that scene, but he's very very relevant to what's happening in the film at that time. But all throughout the movie, there's like radio reports and people just like eating dinner, and the camera is actually fixated, and like the audio track is fixated on like the news report in the room with the other characters, and that's where a lot of the exposition is very organically relayed. And not only that, there's a lot of interesting use of perspective where they put the monsters in our reality, like kind of similar to the way the 2014 American Godzilla film is shot. They make liberal use of like camera angles that feel somewhat like a human perspective to something massive.
Yeah.
So the camera is placed in very interesting
Hmm.
places, and it was ahead of its time. And uh, because it was from the mid '90s up to 1999, the miniature work is like chef's kiss, like top tier shit, like some of the best ever done in the genre.
So
And they were still using miniatures and practical effects.
is this the Heisei era?
Yes, the Heisei era.
Now just curious because Arrow has the two different sets. You have the what is it? The Showa
Showa.
era. Now, like, because my instinct would be to start with the Showa era. Are you saying I should just go right to the Heisei era?
Uh, Depends on what you want.
I don't know.
So well, I mean, this is how you would determine that is so the Showa era is from I think it's like 66, maybe 64 for the first Gamera film, where he's a little bit of a bad guy, and then he becomes friend to all children, and he gets a theme song, and that's where the trope of the Kenny comes from, which is the Kenny in Daikaiju cinema is the little Japanese boy in bike shorts who has unlimited access to military services and technology. It's just like, oh, Kenny's at the Pentagon. We should let him in. It's like it's just a thing that happens in these movies a lot. But and oftentimes they are named Ken, so it's fitting. But um, the first Gamera movie is semi-serious and is black and white, and then all the other ones in that era are ultra like Technicolor pastel, friend to all children, but incredibly violent. Like there's decapitations left and right. Like every monster that does battle with Gamera has to lose a limb. or a head at some point. Gamera versus Guiron or Giron. It's a monster with a knife for a head.
Oh.
Um, it features multiple delimbings and depacketations. Blood. It's lovely. But the 90s ones are more serious across the board. They're also one consistent narrative. Um, so if you want like colorful, fun, goofy, like giant monster movies, Showa. If you want something serious that has a consistent 3 film narrative with, you know, 90s era high quality effects and a more serious tone, Heisei. There's your answer.
Why not both? I'll buy both and won't watch any of them.
Porque no los dos?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's enough about giant rubber monsters, unless you have one you want to share. Brad, what is your next D pick?
I mean, well, I do have something kind of in that vein, but I'm gonna not pick that one. I'm gonna go something else, something a little different. And I guess you could say this is a bit of a monster because it's a monster film, just in terms of its length. This thing is like 3 hours long, over 3 hours. And it is a 4K release of The Deer Hunter. The Deer Hunter, which, of course, famous Vietnam film. I think it did win Best Picture. Yeah, it did win Best Picture. Um, I mean, you got De Niro, you got Christopher Walken, you got Meryl Streep. Great cast. I will say, now, admittedly, I've only seen this film once, and I have not watched this 4K. And that's because the movie is 3 hours. It is long, and it is a very well made film, but it's not like, you know, Tuesday night, I'll throw on The Deer Hunter, have some fun. No, it's not really that kind of thing. Um, I mean, probably the most famous scene is the Russian roulette scene with Christopher Walken and Robert De Niro. But it's an interesting film because the rest of the film is like not like that at all. Um, and I kind of respect how like little is actually spent in Vietnam. Um, and I think it's a especially being so close, like, was Vietnam even over when this movie came out? I don't even know. I think it might have ended a few years ago, but very recently after, the war ended to make a movie that is, pretty prevalent and like, the way that it handles the idea of soldiers changing and the difference between how they were when they went to war, what happened during the war, coming home. Like, it's interesting to have those ideas so fully formed. I mean, I guess Vietnam lasted for a long time, so it's not like it. I'm sure those ideas were in the public's mind for quite some time, but I think it certainly gets points for coming up with this movie so soon after the war. Um, but yeah, it's a very well made film. Performances are great, of course. Just not one that you go back to so often because it is pretty, depressing and long, and it is a little slow, but for a reason. Like I think that first hour watching it for the first time, I'd be curious if I would feel the same way on a rewatch, but watching it for the first time thinking, okay, this is a very famous Vietnam War movie. And then the first hour is just like watching these friends hanging in the woods hunting for an hour. It's like, well, what is going on here? But yeah, it is a good one. And I think the reason I bought it, one of the reasons was because I think this was Shout Factory's very first 4K. So I was like, this is a game changer. Shout's getting into 4K. Got to buy the Deer Hunter. You got to do it. And I remember I did specifically see this in stores at Best Buy. And I was like, well, they're putting it in stores. I got to buy it. Would I have bought it online? Probably not. But I saw it right in front of me and I said, yeah, all right, I'll pay full price for the Deer Hunter and never watch it. So there you go. The Deer Hunter.
What year did that come out? Just curious.
78. 78.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, if memory serves, the John Wayne's The Green Berets was, I believe, the only Vietnam War film released during the Vietnam War, like when before we pulled out, I believe in '75.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, '78 would make sense. Um, yeah, the Deer Hunter's it's an interesting one. It's not an everyday watch, that's for fucking sure. It is very very long and it's very very heavy. Um, but for what it's worth, my dad is a Vietnam vet, and he likes that one. Like he did respect that film. He did like that, and a lot of it actually came down to what you said about the balance of the time spent in country and the time spent before they even get there. He was like, like that was valuable to him. Where it's like it's not just a war movie. It's also about what you said about how it affects people, and it is dialed up to fucking 11 as most dramatized versions of of war and whatnot are portrayed. I mean, the story goes with Platoon that like if you took everything of consequence that happens in the movie Platoon and transpose that onto an actual platoon, it's like no, like no, that all of that probably wouldn't happen to a single group of guys over the course of a tour of duty over there. It would be spread out across the entire war or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad liked that one. I've seen it, but only the one time because it is very very long. Did Walken get the Oscar for that one? I know
I
he
think
has
he
one, but I
did.
can't remember if it's for that though.
I want to say it was for this. um, let's see. It won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Christopher Walken, Best Sound, and Best Film Editing. I mean,
Damn, cleaned up.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, you. Yeah, I remember that. Um, but what's funny about that one is that I haven't watched it. It's in the Criterion Collection, and I subtly was trying to pressure Kyle into getting it for me instead of Deep Cover. Heaven's Gate.
Mm.
Um, the same director, Michael Cimino or Cimino.
Yeah. Yeah.
He that movie. I have a fascination with failure. It's a thing. Like it's the Costanza in me. I gravitate towards failure, and poor decision making. Um, so the story goes, Deer Hunter was like an not unparalleled, but an absolutely incredible success in every regard. And then I think Heaven's Gate came after that, and then I think it completely torpedoed Michael Cimino's career. And that story fascinates me. It
Yeah.
makes me want to see it. It's kind of like Ishtar, where it's like you hear how bad it is, and you're just like, I gots to know. It's like I mean, there's a reason I own Hudson Hawk. It's because I had to know. I was like, this movie it everybody hates it, and apparently it really like put a damper on Bruce Willis's skyrocketing career. I got to know what the fuck happened here. But yeah, Heaven's Gate I have never seen, but it's like a legendary failure that had so much talent and money thrown at it. It's like, how did this happen? But Deer Hunter isn't that. Deer Hunter's a very very good movie. It does go a little extreme at times, but its heart is in the right place, and it's good. It's good filmmaking. It tells a good story, and it's very very well acted by everybody involved. I'm due for a rewatch on that one because I've rewatched Platoon. I've seen that movie too many fucking times. Um, Apocalypse Now I rewatched not that long ago. Full Metal Jacket, it's been a long time, and Deer Hunter's probably the one that it's been the longest gap since I've seen that one. Um, Hamburger Hill's the only other like big one that comes to mind, but nobody gives a fuck about that movie. Like even like
Yeah.
Vietnam like movie aficionados, they don't talk about Hamburger Hill. That movie fucking sucks.
It really is the big four, like that you
It
mentioned. I
is.
mean,
It
yeah.
totally is. Like and the rest.
Yeah. If you had to pick one out of the big four, which would you say is your favorite?
uh it's me personally, and also like my dad vouched for it, probably Platoon. I find that to be the most watchable, but I don't think from a filmmaking standpoint it's the best.
Mhm.
Apocalypse Now is like in all of its fucking forms. God, I watched the reason I watched it most recently was the what's it called, Final Cut, the 4K I have. It's Coppola's trying to raise funds for his big movie he's got. I forget what it's called. It's like, it's not Cosmopolitan or Metropolitan or something. It's something Politan. He's raising funds for his last fucking film, and it's supposed to be a grand fucking epic. And the money's got to come from somewhere. And his fucking Zoetrope Pictures is like self-funded. That's kind of been his thing since the '70s or whatever. Um, and that's why you're seeing this theory. I don't actually know this, but my theory is that's why we're seeing like the the recut of The Godfather Part 3 and the recut of Apocalypse Now is so that they can re-release it and he can collect on some of that Blu-ray money or Fathom events or whatever the fuck, so he can put it into this new movie of his that I will watch if he makes it.
Yeah.
um, but Apocalypse Now really is like, it might be a masterpiece. It's like, like to quote your friend,
Yeah.
it really is like astounding, like filmmaking, like the way it's put together, the way it's shot, the way it's edited. It's like, oh, whoa. This is quite a lot better than any Ultraman movie I've ever seen. But Full Metal Jacket, it's fucking Kubrick. So it's probably neck and neck in terms of just like pure, like raw filmmaking talent being blasted onto the silver screen.
Mhm.
But in terms of like personal favorites, I think it's probably Platoon, just because it's most digestible.
Yeah.
Um, that's mostly it. I don't think it's better. I think I just connect with it better, and it's more palatable. But how about you, Brad?
It's tough for me. I mean, my part of my gut says, just like in terms of which one I like most, I would probably say Full Metal Jacket, just because of the Kubrick element, I guess. But like, yeah, Platoon weirdly is probably like, it's still, a dark film. It's still, about war being hell, but compared to the other ones, it is probably the most like watchable and accessible. Not saying it like, it's not like, you know, a Skyfall or so, you're not like, well, yeah, this is great, but like it is a little more palatable, I guess, and watchable. You could, watch it with a group of friends and, you know, you'd be a serious watch, I guess, but I couldn't imagine having a group of buddies over to watch The Deer Hunter or something like that.
Ugh.
Um, but yeah.
Ugh.
um, but yeah, I definitely do need to see Apocalypse Now again, because it's been too long, and I do realize it's an amazing film, but I don't know if I appreciated it at the same level I would now versus when I watched it 8, 9 years ago, or however long it was. I don't know. So I need to see that one again for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of how it worked for me too, actually. Because Kyle and I reviewed Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now. We actually did a full episode on that, and I think watching that really built up a lot of my appreciation for the film. But the funny part is, I didn't actually like watch the film until I didn't watch it again until much later. And I think carrying that knowledge into the most recent viewing of the film really enhanced its impact on me. And yeah, I can say like wholeheartedly, it's a fantastic fucking film. But I'd still probably watch Platoon given the
Yeah.
choice. The wrong answer is probably We Were Soldiers, Brad. That's clearly the best Vietnam War film ever made.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Nicholas Cage is on another level in that one.
That's Wind Talkers.
Oh, that's when we were soldiers. Is that, what am I thinking of? Which one is
That's
that?
Madman Mel.
Oh, okay.
We
I
put
don't know if I've seen that one.
It's
We
like,
were
I have a
soldiers.
solution. I have the solution to the Vietnam War. Let's drop Mad Max in the jungle and see what happens.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, yes. Now I remember, yes. They
yeah,
both came out around the same time, early
they
2000s,
did.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, it was like early mid 2000s. Wind Talkers was John Woo doing a Pacific Theater World War II movie. That
that's right.
movie's not so great. That was like one of his last Hollywood movies before he hopped over to China, and I think he started doing the Red Cliff series around then. Um,
Yeah.
I could not watch those. I tried. I love John Woo, but I tried to watch Red Cliff, and I was like, I have no idea what's happening. like you have to have some foundation in like Chinese history, because it's just throwing captions and names at you every time the camera moves. It's like name, title, position. I'm just like, fuck, man. It's like I've played a Dynasty Warriors game. I've played a Romance of the Three Kingdoms game, but apparently you need to play all of them in order to understand this fucking Red Cliff movie. But We Were Soldiers is it's only significant because it takes place at the beginning of the war, like the initial American involvement in the conflict, like
Okay.
years after all the stuff with France and whatnot. But
Hmm.
so it has a slightly different, not slightly actually, it's a very patriotic movie in a way that none of the other good ones are. It's like it doesn't have that cynicism,
Yeah.
it has a more Black Hawk Down vibe to it.
Okay.
And also remember, it came out not that long after that movie, and after 9/11 and stuff. So we producers were like, these Americans need a leg up. They need to look back on one of the most contentious conflicts in our history, and get a victory lap out of it. Very, very poor
Yeah.
choice.
Never
Yeah.
never seen that one. I'll add it to the list though.
Good Greg Kinnear. I know he's mostly
Hmm.
doing Jesus movies these days, but good Greg Kinnear. And
Okay.
Mel and Sam Elliott's in there. He's in like full on cowboy mode in that. He's fine in it. Um, has It's very, very violent at times. I remember there was one scene that Dad left the room. He was just like, nope. like he was just like, nope, they did that too well. Fuck that. I hate this movie. I've never want to see it again. Which said a lot. But yeah, We Were Soldiers is nobody's favorite Vietnam War movie.
Mhm.
That being said, is it my pick?
Yes. Yep. I just
Okay,
did the
how
Deer
how
Hunter.
many how many more rounds you want to go, Brad?
I mean, it's your call. I mean, if we could do, if you want to do one more pick and then the speed round, because these last few I don't have a ton to say about.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of entering into the same situation here. So, oof, I don't have enough to say about this movie, so this is actually going to be like an actual quick pick.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, maybe you know something about this movie because I don't.
All right.
Okay, so this D pick is very, very random. Um, but I have here a movie that I read about on, I forget what website it was, but it was a website that specialized in reviews of foreign action films, and it wasn't one of the big ones that I frequent. This was a stumble upon situation where I was like, I couldn't tell you where I found out about this, but
Hmm.
this was an impulse buy that I was just very curious because I read the review, I watched a clip, and I was like, I don't know if I like this, but I'm curious enough to give it a shot. And I think this is why I'm picking this. I'm working backwards, Brad, because we talked a lot about Vietnam. So you have like a iffy connection with Deer Hunter, where it's like it's a good movie, but don't know if it's my favorite. It's not something I would watch every day. That's kind of my attachment to this movie. In that I don't really have one. Is that it might be good. I couldn't tell you. So to dispel the mystery, I have here what I believe is an Italian Blu-ray, the only Italian disc I have on my shelf,
Wow.
um, of Doberman or Doberman, starring Vincent Cassel, Monica Bellucci, and Checky Cario, who I'm always happy to see. And this is directed by, is it Jan Konen? So this is a French film, but this is an Italian Blu-ray. And this movie is fucking hideous. It is deeply unpleasant to look at, and that seems to be the way the cinematography and the editing are motivated. Is that seems to be a guiding principle? Uh, is is to make a absolutely grotesque visual feast of an action film. So this is very much a '90s action film. I forget exactly what year it came out, um, but it's wild, it's over the top, it's borderline nonsensical. Apparently, we have some sexy friends in the chat. In fact, I'm gonna show that right now just because I can. My hot
Yeah.
photo here. So saith
Wow.
the chat from sexfind.xyz. Thanks. Make a donation, Sexfind. Maybe I'll show you on the screen again. But,
Doberman really got everybody talking.
yeah, I mean, Vincent Cassel and Monica Bellucci.
Yeah.
90s Bellucci. Mm. And Checky Cario, I mean, he's hideous in this film, seemingly intentionally so. But yeah, I would recommend looking up a clip of this movie, not watching the whole movie because it's not. I don't think it's good. I really don't think it is, but it's unique. It really does have a singular style to it that was enough to make me want to give it a shot. And part of it was that I couldn't fucking find it anywhere. So I went on eBay and I got this Italian Blu-ray. It had a good transfer. The subtitles I think were of adequate quality, but I did notice like some iffiness where it's like maybe that's a mistranslation. Maybe I'm not. Maybe that's part of why it's hard for me to like get immersed in this. Is maybe I'm missing some of the narrative. Um, but yeah, some really interesting visuals. Very much like loud MTV mid '90s era kind of shit. Um, kind of the Jean Reno movie Wasabi at times, which is also a French film that has kind of a crazy over the top quality to it, almost like a comic booky vibe to it. But that movie's good. Like objectively, it's a good film. Whereas Doberman beats me, man.
Mhm. I've never seen it, but it looked like I just looked it up that he's a bank robber or
Yeah,
he robs banks.
yeah,
Wondering, does it kind of like a bit of a post Tarantino, bit of a Guy Ritchie kind of vibe to it almost?
very
Yeah.
much so. Very
Yeah.
much so. It has some of that stink on it. Checky Cario is delightfully over the top in it. Delightfully is not the right word. He is a nasty fucking villain in it. Like he's just an awful human being in it, and he really dials it up to 11. He's one of those actors that every time you see him, he's great. It's just in American cinema, we didn't get very many glimpses of him. Like he's in uh, Kiss of the Dragon, the Jet Li movie, and The Patriot as the French fella who dresses nicely for what he thinks is going to be his last battle. He's great in that. And the Wing Commander movie, Brad. Have you ever seen Wing Commander?
No, I have not.
Oh fuck! I don't know if you ever make forays into video game cinema, like movies based on video games. Um, I'm a lifelong gamer, so especially like older video game movies are something that I like to check out. But Wing Commander's fucking trash. Although it does have the 1-2 punch of Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard.
Oh, wow. When did it come out?
Uh, Late '90s, I think.
Oh, so they
I
were
think
kind of in their prime then.
they were. I mean, they
Wow.
had not frosted tips, but they definitely had some of that shit. Like there may have
Hmm.
been some puka shells under their flight suits. Who knows? But yeah, that was Doberman. Like I said, I don't have much to say about it other than like just hey, I have this. It's weird.
I mean, cool that it's an Italian Blu-ray though. Is it region
it,
A or
it
what region is it?
officially on the box. On the box, it says ABC. So
Oh,
all
cool.
yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. Yeah, weird diversion, but just for a pit stop, real quick, Brad. Do you have any like Blu-rays that it's not a matter of like how much it costs; it's a matter of can you find it? Like, do you have any movies right now that you can think of that's like, I want this or I would like to see this, but I just don't have the means to get it to me?
Like a movie that, like, doesn't have any sort of release sort of thing,
I was
or
thinking more availability. Like it does exist in some form, but not a form that's easy to acquire.
hmm,
Um, or failing that, something that hasn't been released yet.
it's a good question. Um, I mean,
I know I'm putting you on the
previously
spot, but
no, it's I know one example I can think of that is now available that I forgot to pick up in the Criterion sale. Or no, I don't think it's available yet. I don't think it's come out yet, but there was, a couple, Michael Haneke movies. This was a long time ago. I was going through Michael Haneke's filmography and specifically one Benny's Video. I couldn't rent it anywhere. Um, I couldn't stumble upon a good site for for it accidentally. So I was like, "Oh, there's, like, no way to watch this thing." But it is getting a release, on through Criterion. They're putting out, like, 3 Michael Haneke movies, in one set, and I don't think it's come out yet. So I didn't forget to buy it. I don't think it's out yet, but, um, that was probably the last example I can think of where there was a movie that I just couldn't find a way to watch. Like, couldn't rent it, couldn't stream it anywhere, couldn't get it from the library, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, in terms of like something that's gotten a release that's hard to find, I'd have to think about that. I'd have to think about that.
yeah, I know it was kind of out of the blue, but like maybe if we get to the end of the episode and you can think of anything, like feel free to share. But like for me, um, there I have a couple of movies that haven't been released, but I also have ones that subtitled. They're foreign, but they only
Mm.
exist in their region, but without English subtitles or something like that. So one that I know hasn't been released because I checked this morning because I'm like every once in a while I just check in on it. I think it came out in 2019. It's a movie my brother turned me on to that I should probably just rent it and get it over with because it is available digitally, um, but not physically. Is In Full Bloom. Um, it's I, I forget what countries it's a co-production between, but it's most certainly a Japanese co-production. But it's a boxing film set during World War II, that's produced by Henry Cejudo, who one of your buddies might know who that is. He's a retired UFC fighter. Um, I don't know how he got attached to the project, but as far as I know, it's only available digitally at the moment, and it's been that way for years, unfortunately. And as a result, I haven't watched it because I kind of resigned myself to just buying it if it ever becomes available. Um, Additionally, there's a Japanese film called In the Hero. That's the concept was like, man, that sounds great. I wish I could watch that. I can't though because it hasn't been released outside Japan. It hasn't been subtitled. It's about like a tokusatsu TV show, so like Power Rangers or Kamen Rider or something. It's about an actor who wears the costume, so like the stunt guy essentially, and he wants to like break out into actual acting, but like he's being held down by the man. So it's about this stunt man who's accustomed to having to wear like superhero rubber costumes and stuff all the time, trying to branch out in his career. It sounded really cool, but anyway, thanks for indulging me on that.
I, I
I'm always
I
fascinated by stuff like that.
I did think of one potentially, although looking into it, it might actually be a pretty easy way to watch it. The one that I was thinking of is the Straight Story, the David Lynch film, which weirdly does not have a North American Blu-ray release, but it does have several international versions. And apparently, I was just looking it up. Imprint put out a version of it last year, and I guess it is region free. Um, but it'd just be the way of, I guess, importing it and the cost of that. And I'm looking on Diabolic DVD, and they're out of stock. But there are versions out there, but it is a little wild that there has not been a release of it. But little, just, you know, little theory, a little prediction here. Criterion just put out Wall-E on 4K. Of course, a Disney Pixar film. I do believe the Straight Story is owned by Disney. My theory is that we will be getting a Straight Story Criterion release very soon. Now that they're dipping into that Disney well, I would be. It feels like a Criterion movie. It feels like it, and the fact that it hasn't gotten any kind of North American release, it's overdue. But it is on Disney Plus, so I did watch it a couple years ago on there. So you can watch it easily. It's just not own it.
Yeah, I mean that would only make sense. I mean if they've popped the seal on that makes sense. Plus, David Lynch is like akin to Akira Kurosawa, where it's just like if he made it, it's going to end up in the Criterion Collection eventually. Um, but yeah, that's funny though. That's not available in our region. Like you would just expect as a David Lynch film, somebody's going to want to distribute this. But Disney's very protective of their stuff, so maybe that had something to do with
Yeah.
it.
It's funny too because it's such a, and like I don't think you said you haven't seen it. I don't think, right? But
That's the lawnmower movie, right?
yeah. It's just
Yeah.
it's such a distinctly American movie too. It's about a man on a cross country road trip through like the heart of the country on the lawnmower. Like it's just weird that there's no North American release of it, even though it's like it's where you would expect it to be. Like that's where
Yeah,
it
it's a
matters.
big hit in
Yeah,
Finland and the
exactly.
Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I will point out that there is a Scott Adkins movie called Incoming. Incoming. Put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. That, as far as I know, never received a physical release in our region, which means I will have to investigate and see if I can find like a German DVD or something that I can't play. Okay, so that was Doberman. Did you want to do one more round, or are you about tapped out, Brad?
I think I can just go to the speed round. I don't have a ton to
Okay,
say about any of these, to be honest.
I think that's where I'm at too. So good call. Okay, so folks at home, if you're not aware, the way we traditionally close out our Tales from the Shelf episodes is we do a little something we like to call the speed round, where essentially what we do is we pour over our runner-ups, our picks that we set aside for the conversation this episode that did not get spotlit just now. And we just run through them kind of rapid fire style. So we're not going to be doing like a back and forth conversation on it. It's more just like a show and tell brief, just like here's what it is, here's what it means to me, moving on. So that being said, Brad, would you like to go first? Or do you need to collect yourself? Otherwise, I can go.
I mean, I can go first. I've got everything I need to collect right here. So yeah, I can kick it
Okay.
off.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give you the single, and you can take off.
Well, I've got Deep Star 6, which I watched for the first time not too long ago. I like these underwater horror films. I was looking. It is crazy. Like I forget that this Leviathan and I want to say the Abyss all came out the same year, which is
Lords of the Abyss, also.
It's crazy. But yeah, it's a fun little underwater horror film. Lots of bonus features on the Kino disc, which is great. So it is a good release. I've got Dazed and Confused, the Criterion version. Love Dazed and Confused, one of my favorite films. Just got announced that they're releasing a 4K of this, so pretty soon I can throw this in the garbage. A movie that has a 4K, but I have the Criterion of is Do the Right Thing. When I've only seen this the one time, but I sprung for the Criterion version, which is pretty substantial. You've got a huge booklet in here, like not that I've read it, but like just like they put some effort into this release. Like this is a big booklet. Like this is substantial. But it also has a standard 4K, so you could have gone either way. But amazing film, obviously, Spike Lee. And I've got 4K of The Dark Crystal, which my buddy Charlie, big fan of this one. I watched it, I think, for the first time not too long ago. I really enjoyed it. And I had crystal fever. I had dark crystal fever watched the first episode of the Netflix show, thought it was great, and then I didn't watch anymore. I watched the first episode and I was out after that. But it was good. I was like, I'm gonna watch this show, and it just didn't happen. But
I think Kyle did the same thing, and he loves puppets.
yeah,
And he's been trying to get me to watch the movie for a long time. I still haven't,
mm, yeah,
but
it's
that's on my to-do list for sure.
I should rewatch Labyrinth, but I actually think I would say I prefer the Dark Crystal over Labyrinth. But it's been a long time since I've seen Labyrinth, so maybe I need to revisit that one. And the last one, which I feel like I don't think it has a 4K release yet, but it has to be getting one soon, I would think, unless there's rights issues. Day of the Dead, the George Romero film, Day of the Dead. I think you and I have joked that George Romero's estate is just pumping anything they can for cash. So would not be surprised if we get a 4K of this. Also because it's a Scream Factory release, but it's an early Scream Factory release of a pretty substantial movie from one of the famous horror directors. So I think a 4K release would I'd be surprised if it doesn't come at some point. But I actually really like Day of the Dead. Not as good as Dawn of the Dead, but it's close to being it's maybe just slightly underneath Night of the Living Dead. I think Day of the Dead is really good. And I enjoy it. So yeah, I've got more D's besides that, but those are the ones that I pulled off the shelf.
Yeah, good deal. I mean, I didn't expect you to pull all the D's off the shelf, but yeah, you and I have had that debate before about Day and Dawn. I think my assessment of them is a little biased because I saw Day first,
Okay.
and then saw Dawn. I will concede that Dawn is the more than likely the better film. Very similar, I guess, to my feelings on Platoon, and just like Vietnam War movies and whatnot. I think Dawn is the better film, but there's some qualities today that are just really they really get a lot of it right. Like it has an oppressive tone to it that is daring. Like there's very few horror movies I've seen like that kind of very explicit horror where like it's not like a ghost story or something like more supernatural like that. It's like it's very in your face. Like the monsters are over there. We can touch them and deal with them every day. But it has like a really dark and oppressive quality to it that's overbearing at times. Like it's a very dreary movie. And
Hmm.
Tom Savini's probably his best work of his entire filmography, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
it's good.
Truly incredible
The
gore
effects are
effects.
amazing.
Good soundtrack too.
Hmm.
It doesn't have the gonk, which is the
Oh,
best music ever committed to film, but it does have a good soundtrack. But yeah, good pick. I do expect there to be a 4K eventually, just because whoever's running that estate, man, they want to squeeze every fucking penny out of it. They made a fucking zombie out of George Romero's filmography.
hmm.
It just keeps coming back. Just more hot girls have arrived.
Oh
More
yeah.
hot girls. More hot girls for free.
Hey, as
uh,
long as they're getting some recommendations on some movie picks, it's fine by me.
yeah, so folks at home, if you're listening to the audio only version of the show, we're doing a live stream and we're getting a lot of comments about hot girls are here and they're free. Sometimes they're on fire. Sometimes they have exposed hearts, according to the text messages. Okay, so I guess it's to me. Um, So I have a few more picks than you, as is the norm, but I'll try to be quick about it. So I have here in my speed round uh, Daniel Bryan. Just say yes, yes, yes. This is about the wrestler from Aberdeen, Washington. Not my hometown, but my home state. So I always cheer for I believe he goes by Brian Danielson now at AEW, but this is a WWE produced documentary about his career. It's not great, but it does include a lot of his matches on the bonus discs, which is nice, especially considering it like includes a lot of his old stuff. It's like from his up and coming days, but the man's still working to this day, and apparently he's still headlining shows. Like he's still top of his class in terms of wrestling talent. I have here the who directed this? Pete Travis, who it is a complete shock to me, and I haven't investigated this. Maybe you can look this up while I'm talking, Brad. Has Pete Travis done anything? Because I have Dread here, and this movie made a big splash with the people who saw it, but not that many people saw it, as far as I know. And from a style standpoint and from an execution standpoint, it's simple but effective, and it all signs point to it being a career making movie. It's just like I don't see how somebody wouldn't get more work out of this. Like, do you know, has he made any other movies?
He did one other movie that came out in 2016 called City of Tiny Lights.
The fuck?
Which it's got Riz Ahmed, and
Okay,
that's about it.
talented actor.
Yeah, but I think before I mean, not saying he's not talented, but before he was, a name.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, never heard of this. He's also done a few TV things, but yeah, that is interesting that he kind of fell off.
Well, I have to come to the conclusion that he's an asshole, because no, because Dread is a very competently made film, like well put together. They accomplished quite a lot with what I believe to be a very low budget. It even made use of 3D at the time when 3D was relevant. Um, it's a fun watch. It has a lot going for it, but for whatever reason, it just did not take off the way I would have expected. Moving on, though, I have Dick Tracy, which I hope they make a new Blu-ray of this. This is also a Disney film, as far if memory serves, and this Blu-ray is fine, but it's not great. And I mostly have it because I like looking at this movie. But Kyle and I, the debate continually rages: like, is Dick Tracy good? And I stand by the fact that I never it never quite clicks with me, but it's really beautiful to look at. But something about the pace of it, or the lack thereof, just bores me. um,
I
moving
don't want
on
to
to,
interrupt you here, but I have some Pete Travis updates. Which I've never heard this. This is kind of interesting, but I just googled Pete Travis Dread, and the first thing that pops up is an article from IndieWire, so reputable source. This isn't just some Reddit post or something. That says Carl Urban claims Alex Garland actually directed Dread, not Pete Travis, and the quote is, "A huge part of the success of Dread is, in fact, due to Alex Garland. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Alex Garland actually directed that movie," Urban said. So there you go.
I'm inclined to believe that, because Alex Garland has gone on to have a very good career, and has shown to be very talented. And for that to get out into the public without a retraction or anything probably means it's true.
Yeah, makes sense.
Interesting. Thanks for looking
Yeah.
into that. Appreciate it. Okay, I have another WWE documentary, The Destruction of the Shield. All three of these guys are still working. All three of them are still at the pinnacle of sports entertainment. I have here three movies that I was going to talk about in detail, but instead I decided to talk about Doberman, because I'm smart. I have uh, The Debt Collector, The Debt Collector on French Canadian Blu-ray, and Debt Collectors, which is
Oh,
actually the sequel to The Debt Collector. All three of which are Scott Adkins films. All three of which are well, it's two films, three discs, directed by Jesse V. Johnson. Uh, Lots of fun, lots and lots of fun. They have a fun homage to the fist fight between Roddy Piper and Keith David in They Live. They have a fun like recreation of that in there in the sequel. I have Digstown, which is a fun little hustler slash gambling boxing film. James Woods, I know it to be an incredibly divisive figure. I know a lot of the internet absolutely hates this man, but I'm sorry. a lot of times he is exactly the right man for the job when it comes to acting, not being a human being or being a good person. But James Woods really works here, and Lou Gossett Jr. is fantastic as always. This was a very early review for Catching Up on Cinema. I roped Kyle into reviewing this movie, and he was like, "The fuck is Digstown?" I was like, "It was this movie they used to play on UPN all the time." He was like, "That means it's good." It's like, yes, shut up. I like it. Good Bruce Dern, really good Bruce Dern.
Mm,
I have Departures, which I believe I've talked about with you before, Brad.
that's right. Yeah.
This is a Japanese film. It's very procedural about like traditional funeral services. Um, Absolutely beautiful score by Joe Hisaishi. The music that plays over the end credits is like one of the most beautiful pieces of music I've ever heard. It's one of the few movies I've seen in the theater with my grandma, which I can count on exactly one. I think I've seen two movies with my grandma in the theater, so that's kind of important to me. I have Dog Bite Dog, which is a Chinese film that I probably should have brought up talking about The Deer Hunter, because this is a movie about. I mean, it's a wild fucking movie, but the main character makes a huge transition in the final act where he basically turns into a crazed barbarian out of nowhere.
Hmm.
It's pretty fucking cool. It's a good movie. I like it. I haven't watched it in a long time. I have on DVD Dead Alive, Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. Literally, the only reason I have this on my shelf is because this is one of those movies that does have a Blu-ray, but it's absurdly overpriced and is not very. It's like horribly rated. I remember Kyle looking into this, and he still wants this movie, but it's expensive in all forms that it exists in, and all printings of it are shit. So I have this because it was the right price at the right time, but that's kind of it.
Do you know the reason for that?
I don't like. I don't know
Weird.
why that is, but it's been like an obsession for Kyle. Like he it's like the one page on Blu-ray.com that he frequents is like
Mhm.
checking is Peter Jackson's Dead Alive available in an acceptable form now, because it's bizarre that you would expect someone with the name of Peter Jackson, similar to your David Lynch, like you would expect all of his work to be available, like readily available and of decent quality at the very least. But that DVD is not very good, and that Blu-ray disc is apparently not very good either. Um,
Hmm.
I do know that they have reissued some of Peter Jackson's works in the past couple of years, and every time one of these comes out or something, I know Kyle's radar goes off, and he's like, "Is it Dead Alive?" And like, "Fuck, it's not." It's like it's that stupid World War One documentary again. It's "They Shall Not Grow Old" or some shit. Something actually important, not like that zombie movie. Okay, and my last one is an oddly shaped DVD, so I'll actually need to hold that one up so you can see what I mean. So this box is very, very frustrating on my shelf. So I have here, it just says Dragon Forever, which is a little depressing. It's supposed to be plural because there's three of them. It's Dragons Forever. And I believe 88 Films is putting this out or has put this out on Blu-ray, potentially not in our region, Brad. I'm not positive on that. I'd need to look
Hmm.
it up. But if you look at the proportions of the box, it's like a couple millimeters wider than a standard
Oh,
DVD. Just a
okay.
couple
Yeah.
of millimeters. The transfer is fine on the DVD, but the subtitles are trash. But I bought this was one of the earliest DVDs I ever fucking bought, and a lot of it came down to I was this was when I was starting to get obsessed with martial arts films, and Benny Urquidez is a American kickboxer who worked with Jackie Chan twice, and Wheels on Meals was their first collaboration. Dragons Forever was their second, and there's this debate, like at the time anyway. We've come a very long way in martial arts cinema, but at the time, the debate was Wheels on Meals and like Jackie Chan versus Benny Urquidez very well may be the best exhibition of martial arts in cinema. Dragons Forever may equal it. So there was this debate, like which one's the better exhibition of those two actors going at it with each other.
Hmm.
So I picked up both of those movies on DVD from the same label, so they both have that funky box. They both have shit subtitles. But Dragons Forever is a fun one. It's directed by Corey Yuen. I think he also choreographed it, and also you get the Three Musketeers. You get the Sammo Hung, Yun Biao, and Jackie Chan combination, and seeing the three of them together is just fucking cinema magic. Like they perform miracles on screen. Yun Biao in particular, like he's just an expert acrobat, and Sammo Hung, the fleet-footed fat man. It's like if Chris Farley knew kung fu. It's delightful. Did you ever see the show Martial Law, Brad?
No, I never did.
You may be too young for that, but Sammo Hung, hair that looked like a skunk, kind of. He graced our televisions, and I think he had a crossover with Walker Texas Ranger, called Walker. It was called Martial Law, and Kelly Hu was one of his sidekicks. I think like Arsenio Hall or some shit was one of his sidekicks.
All
but
right.
but yeah, I'm pretty sure he showed up, and he. I don't know if he threw down with Chuck Norris, but he definitely showed up on his show. But I'm always happy to see Sammo Hung. But Dragons Forever is terrific. If that 88 films version of it, which again, I don't know if it's available now or is yet to be released, if that comes out in our region, fuck yes, I'm buying that, because I'd actually like
Grab
to
it.
know what
Yeah.
people are saying to each other, because these subtitles are trash. Ah, that being said, that was the speed round. Not so speedy on my part. I'm sorry about that. But as always, Brad, thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun. Folks at home, I don't know if you're watching the video or listening to the audio, but we're trying out a brand new streaming software called Restream here. And I think it's worked out. We'll find out after I hit the end button, but it seems to be working well. But as always, thank you so much for joining me, Brad. I really appreciate your help doing the show. And I think Brad actually died as I was talking about the stream being broadcast by a new service. Absolutely fucking wonderful. So, in case he doesn't come back, oh, he's back. Brad's back. Wow, we went 2 hours without anything bad happening, Brad. Are you back? Maybe not. So, um, just in case Brad's audio doesn't come back, uh,
Oh, am I here?
you are here. We made it two
as,
hours before anything bad happened, Brad. Congratulations.
as soon as you say it's going by without any problems, then
I
that's
was
when.
in the process of praising the streaming software for doing its job absolutely beautifully. And
Of
wouldn't you
course, of
know it,
course.
it fucked me. Okay, well, I was in the middle of thanking you, Brad, for joining me. I always appreciate your help doing this. But before we go, would you care to let the folks at home know where they could find you and your super awesome podcast?
Yeah, it's the Cinema Speak podcast. We're on Twitter at the Cinema Speak, on Instagram as Cinema Speak Podcast, and on YouTube as Cinema Speak. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find shows, or just find us on the web at cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
All right, thanks for that, Brad. And do you have any videos lined up? I know you have some Black Friday boxes plural coming to your door soon. Like, you think you're gonna do an unboxing?
I might do a little something. I'll see. I'll see. It just depends if I get the motivation. I've got the movies where I could do something, but just depends if I get the motivation and the time.
I mean, it's all about time. I completely understand, but thanks, Brad. But in the meantime, folks at home, if you'd like to catch up on any of our Catching Up on Cinema content, you can find all of that collected on our website at CatchingUpOnCinema.com. You can also find us on the social medias at Instagram at Catching Up on Cinema, or on the Twitter at Catching Cinema. So feel free to hit me up at either of those. And the podcast is available on pretty much every platform you can imagine, including Bitcade. So fucking Google it. And that being said, thank you so much for listening, or hopefully watching. And we will catch you next time.